Would you be down to like FaceTime or no?
Or just do like a video, or no, it's not. If not, it's fine.
I just look like shit right now.
No worry.
All right. It's all right. Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Bootum.
And this is Simon.
I'm also known as Alex, my real name, and I'll be referred to that on this podcast at times. And this is the Per 36 podcast. Call it Per 36 because it's going to be roughly 36 minutes because no one wants to hear us rant on for an hour or too long. And it's also because Per 36 is a advanced stat that's used often for bench players, which I love and Simon love, and we'll be showing a lot of love to on this podcast. Namely today, one of my favorite bench players of all time, one of the greatest bench scorers in NBA history, in my opinion, Chris Optimus Prime Copeland, one of the bright spots of one of the greatest Knicks seasons in the past 20 years or so. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy. Alrighty.
Okay, so, I know especially for Alex here, you've been, and he's been very big on the Knicks Reddits and all of those blogs, and you are one of the biggest fan favorites probably of the past decade. And so if you could start off just saying, letting people know what you've been up to recently, I think people are really interested.
I'm being honest, been thinking about if I'm still playing this game, being honest, working on a lot of things outside of basketball. I'm enjoying the process of possibly transitioning into other things, which I don't want to speak about just yet. But I've been toiling, I'll say.
All right.
And so, yeah, and we still see you. Even, do you think it's the sort of thing where even if you move on to that kind of next chapter, you'll still be playing in the summer and working out with guys?
Getting those Rico Hines runs in?
Yeah.
I always see, on Twitter, it's always Harden and the Rico Hines runs and stuff like that, or Pascal Siakam. And you're always in the background. I always want you to be I always want the Copeland highlight videos. You're always, they never really focus on you. It's a shame.
Well, the game is for the young, you know what I mean? And I'm on an older stage now. And, it's good to see those guys get out there, get their name out, even if it's just summer stuff where they're just, training and trying to get better. I don't care for all that. I think I've, my time of trying to be the center of the light and be in the guys past. So it's exciting to see those guys grow. And I'll continue to play as long as I can. That's my love for the game. That'll never go anywhere. But trying to play at that level, we'll see.
Now, you have a really unique kind of journey into it, especially because you're not one of these guys that came into the league as just a young kid, as an 18, 19-year-old. What effect do you think that had on you and kind of your mindset and being able to immediately contribute for the Knicks, but also just having just somewhat of a normal life and figuring out who you were and then going into the league as 28, 29?
What effect did that have?
Yeah.
It makes you more appreciative of the gifts and the blessings that I've had. the fact that the storyline was a lot tougher than typical, I would say. So it makes you more appreciative, for one. And even, as we talk about the transition, maybe out of, it gives me, I say sometimes joking to some of my closest friends, I'm like, they never should have let me make it at 28 because I know whatever I decide to do go next. I'm just not going to stop till I get it done. That's just kind of who I am now. I've proven to myself that I can always get whatever done. And, that's something that I take with me, not one to appreciate and one for the future.
That's what I find, I like you for a lot of reasons, but I just find that very fascinating to me. There's a lot of NBA players who have out of nowhere success stories, but you're the only one where it's you you had to kind of grind your way to get to the league. You weren't some got like
5-star high school.
yeah, and
recruit.
you're a 4-year guy. Like, did you ever have doubts getting back into the league? Like, do you think when you first came out of college, do you think you were ready for the NBA then, or do you think you made strides to become good enough for the league?
That's a great question. I was talented enough for the NBA coming out of college. Was I good enough? Was I ready mentally? I don't know. I probably wasn't, and I appreciate that part of my story. If anybody knows the details, one of my coaches overseas kind of changed my life and got me focused on how to be, whether it be changing my mindset, working smarter and not always harder, things of that nature. He just taught me how to be a real professional, not just talented. And I had to really learn the game and learn how to master the best of my abilities. So was I ready? I know I always had ability. I was playing against guys for summers, and I more than held my own against some guys you wouldn't believe. But I think the part of actually being a pro that a lot of people undervalue, I think I wasn't ready for it till later.
That I think that's like a really like special thing for you to acknowledge, but also like, do you remember kind of that feeling after your first NBA game, or even like me and Alex were talking yesterday? Like there was one game that stood out specifically to both of us.
Yeah, we'd say your first break. I think your first, like, I mean, you killed it. I remember my first like Chris Copeland moment was I was in the gym watching the Knicks Celtics preseason. You were just absolutely lighting them up. I mean, after that, did you feel like you kind of made it? I mean, I guess you weren't, you hadn't officially made the team yet, but. No. Like when did you have that first moment where you're like, all right, like I am like good enough for this? Yeah. Or did it come before you even made them?
Honestly, I was terrified, man. Like after that game, even I had 20 something, and then I think another one had 30 something in the preseason or something like that. I was still terrified. I mean, like you understand, I was 28, just getting my first shot. I've been used to hearing no matter what I did. I had some really great runs. I've had, I've done the mini camp thing, and I've done really well. I played against their current players, and I was supposed to go to summer leagues and other teams and stuff. I just kept hearing no's. So to me, I didn't believe it. I just kind of kept my head down, just kept, trying to attack everything in front of me. That was just kind of my mentality for that year in general. I didn't really believe it. I was like, no matter what, even with the numbers I was putting up, I didn't really think it was real. The only guy who like kind of came to my side was Kurt Thomas, if y'all remember him.
Yeah, of course.
After the first like big game, he said, you separated yourself. He said, you're gonna make this team. I'm like, yeah, all right. I didn't even believe it, like for real. I was like, all right, yeah, whatever. Like at that time there was one slot for like 16 people. Yeah. I mean, for 6 guys. I thought all of them could play. I mean, Chris Smith was a part of that. He ended up getting hurt. I just didn't think I was going to make it. You know what I mean? And I just wanted to leave my impression before they cut me. That's kind of what I was thinking.
That's one of the great what ifs. If Chris Smith stayed healthy, would he still have finessed his way onto the roster? Because
I mean, hey, Chris could play, man. He can play.
Chris in Louisville could play.
Yeah, but he was no Chris Copeland.
Chris Smith can play. I didn't honestly, in the back of my head, to be totally honest, I didn't think I was going to make that team. I just wanted to put my best foot forward.
I mean, you killed it. I remember that, like, everyone else was struggling. John Cherna was not cutting, and you were just, like, absolutely just, like, scorching them.
Now, like, and kind of that mind shift, like, that mindset shift, is it kind of weird going from that, you're used to hearing no, and you're always the underdog, and you're kind of like, I don't know, maybe comfortable in that position of going against the grain, and then you make the team, and then it's like, all right, like, okay, now I'm here. What am I gonna do with it?
I'm still the underdog again because now I gotta swim, right? I'm in the water. So what are we gonna do? I wasn't guaranteed, and I was reminded of that once I was given the go ahead to be on the team. I was reminded that this was not a guaranteed thing. And I had to work and make sure I made it to that deadline. For me, it wasn't even about making it to the deadline of the contract. I just wanted to finish the year and again, leave my mark and make sure my presence was felt as long as they would have me. Because again, I didn't. It was also such a dream. It was like they're gonna cut me. This is too good to be true. You know what I mean? Like this is. So while I'm here, let me make sure that they remember me. So I try to be as aggressive as possible. Ups and downs, but it worked out.
So Simon and I were talking about, we were going through like your games for the Knicks. We'd say your first big breakout game.
Like the game where I remember, we both remember you, and just as just young Knicks fans at the time, just remembering being like, who is this guy? And you came off the bench against the Suns.
Yeah, you came off the bench against the Suns. In 9 minutes, you had 8 points, made 4 or 5 shots. You had 3 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, a block. I think I remember you had a putback dunk. It's also a fun game because Sheed got ejected in the first half, I think, for yelling "ball don't lie" twice. But what was going through your mind after that game?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I again at that time, I wasn't playing a lot. I was going through the rookie struggles of you haven't proven yourself yet. So and there's a lot of more deserving guys because of their pedigree and their resume who were ahead of me, and I didn't expect to play. Honestly, all season. And that was some of the conversations I had. I was told, you may be sitting on the bench all year long. They really told me that. And I was like, shit, I just want to wear the jersey. It's an honor for me to make it. So I think somebody got hurt. Then she got ejected. And it's like how many people, like, just everything just fell. And then it's like, who else can we play? It was like, damn, they just throw Chris in, fuck it. You know what I mean? It's like that type of deal. Like, there was no other option. So they threw me out there type deal. And I remember not being ready. I was like, "Oh shit, I'm really about to play, and it matters. These are minutes that count." And I got on the floor. True story. A lot of people don't know. The first shot I hit, like I remember I passed up one shot. I think or something before that. And Jr. actually screamed at me. He was like, "Jr. just shoot the ball," and the next play, I came down because it was like one of those, lock in, and it was like a wake up call. So I never forget JR for that moment. And every time I caught it, I was letting it fly.
That's that J.R. Smith mentality.
That was pretty much me the rest of the year.
Well, my question is, so I mean, obviously, you weren't even expecting to play at all, but when you kill it that much and you have that good a game, and you have 8 points in 9 minutes, like, are you confused why you didn't like go back in? And like, why? I mean, I know I was like very confused at the time, like why, and also that game aside, just in general, I thought it was a very good team, but I was always like a little frustrated with like the inconsistent minutes you had. I thought you very much earned a spot to have like regular playing time. Like what's going through your mind when you had like inconsistent minutes? When I thought you were killing it. Like, what was your?
That game in particular was just like, oh, okay, I did this in the real game, in the real stage. I was just happy for the opportunity and happy that it worked out. I mean, everybody can say they're good enough to do things and da-da-da, but till you prove it to yourself, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? To me. So that was my first moment of like really proving it to myself. Like, okay, I got a couple minutes. I got a lot done real fast. I remember thinking that to myself, like, okay, I can do this for real. And that was my thought that game. And, when the minutes didn't come, of course you're frustrated as a competitor because you want to, now you can do it. And people obviously telling me like, yeah, you should be playing more and all that. You can't block that out. You see it. I think Coach was, I was a rookie. You got to earn it. And I respect that about Coach. I think he made me, I had to practice patience for one. But when you're a rookie, you got to go through trials and tribulations. I don't think it should just be handed to you after one game, unless you like a LeBron type or something. Other than that, you got to go through what it is. And I don't regret that at all.
Now, like, reminiscing on that season as a whole, I mean, like, that's probably the fondest memories us and most young Knicks fans have. What do you think made that 2012-2013 team so special?
Yeah.
And like, what do you think it would take to maybe something close like that happen again?
Because Melo obviously had a great year, and but it wasn't like your average team. It was a weird team with like Felton and Kidd and Prigioni, like 3 guard line. Like, what do you think made that team so special? The way everyone just kind of clicked. It was a weird combination of veterans, like guys who would play in like you had like Sheed play in the beginning, then he was hurt all year. Then all of a sudden you had like Kurt Thomas play, and then he got hurt. Like, what do you think made
Was Shumpert then?
Yes, Shumpert was out the first half season. You had Ronnie Brewer starting the first half of the games, and then they traded him. What do you think, like, through like a kind of like weird roster, like what do you think made everyone just kind of gel and win 54 games?
Experience. I think it's probably one of the more experienced. I don't want somebody's gonna like look up the real numbers and tell me I'm wrong, but I feel like it had to be one of the more experienced teams in New York Knicks history as far as age. Me as a rookie, we had 2 rookies. I was 28. Pablo was 35 maybe or something, 32, something. I don't know. He was, we had your rookies are coming in with something with real game experience. You know what I mean? Then you have a ton of vets that just know how to play, and then and everybody on the roster is super talented, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Whoever you can name was out of this world talented at something. So I think it was just like the perfect storm for it. And the experience was like the biggest part. The fact that everybody again had been through a lot of wars on other teams and other situations, and everybody knew how to win. And you put all that together. And the right personalities for the city, which isn't the easiest place in the world to play. We all know this. Yeah. But I think we had the right personalities to handle this, playing in New York, playing under the light and all that type of stuff, and you saw the result.
Yeah. So you mentioned Pablo Prigioni, another fan favorite. I mean, can you talk a little bit about your relationship with him, both on and off the court? I mean, I remember just from like preseason to me, it seemed like every time down, you guys would run the pick and roll, and every time it was a bucket. I made a video. I could send it to you later if you want. Of just like a combination of, it's a compilation of Pablo's assists to you. Like you guys seem to have a real connection. Like, what was he like? What was your relationship with him like?
Oh man, that was my guy. He used to talk about everything. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever been around. Smart, cool. Chill, like I love Pablo, man. He's and as far as basketball minds, there aren't many stronger ones. And he knew I wanted to score, and I know he wanted the assist. Long story short, so we were a match made in heaven.
He was someone. At some points, it looked like he was allergic to shooting. Like
Say again?
I said at some points it looked like he was allergic to shooting because his first instinct every time was to look for you outside the arc or anyone else.
He proved to be very capable, of course, but that's what he did. That's what he does. Like it's like you tell me to go be a rebounder. It's like it's just not what I do.
You get buckets. Pablo gets assists. You get buckets.
Yeah, he's a pass first point guard, and that's where he felt the most comfortable, and that's where he was most effective. And I think that showed in his game. Like that's just what he looked to do for the most part. But he was obviously capable, and when big shots were needed to be knocked down, he did that.
And just like as a whole, if you remember that year and that team, like as you were saying right before he brought up Pridge, but what was it like playing in New York, like especially that year, completely under the microscope and like in the Mecca? Was it a crazy experience? Do you still like think like, wow, that was like, there were some times that were nuts and also some great times? Like, how do you kind of look back on it now?
It was wild. I mean, not only was this is my first year in the NBA, I made it at 28. I'm playing for my childhood team. You know what I mean? I'm from Jersey, so we watched the Nets, but the Knicks was a squad for everybody in the tri-state. And we're good. We're really good. We're talking championships. We were thinking about. You know what I mean? That was the goal. So it was like, it was super crazy for that to be my first year. Like, it was like, where am I right now?
Yeah. So you mentioned Pablo, but were there any other guys on that Knicks team that you were really close with and, that were help? You mentioned some stories about like Kurt Thomas helping you out and J.R. Smith giving you advice. Like, do you have any? Were there any other guys that would give you advice like that a bit? And like,
Yeah, she was big for advice. She was heavy in my ear. I put like honestly, I put Kurt first, but then she right there as like, and then Marcus Camby, like he was my actual vet. He did all the hazing.
I remember you singing "Happy Birthday" and wearing pajamas.
Yeah, whose idea was that? I don't think that was Cam.
I don't know. You sung it for Jason Kidd, I think. I don't know whose idea
Yeah.
it was though. But
Yeah.
it's good times.
Yeah, that was fun. But no, honestly, again, that's part of playing with so many vets. J Kidd. Everybody had even J Kidd just talking to me. We were in the ice tub a lot, and talking about body maintenance and things that he did for longevity. And like, I mean, I could go down the list. Honestly, I don't want to forget anybody and just start saying names. But that whole team is full of experienced guys that I felt like everybody had their hand in helping me one through the year and just helping me about growing as I went forward. You know what I mean? So the whole team, bro, like everybody. For real.
Yeah. All right. So one guy I gotta talk about. He's a bit of a hot topic right now. What are your thoughts on Carmelo Anthony? And do you think obviously there's a lot of negative stuff about him out there. Like he's selfish, a bad teammate. Like what are your thoughts on him? And do you think he should be in the league right now? Do you think he's being blackballed? What are your?
I don't know why everybody calls him a bad teammate. Like none of his who of his teammates say that.
I'm sure it's kind of just like a media myth. I mean, he was voted to be like the best teammate. I'm very pro Melo. Don't get me wrong.
It was the media. It was kind of a media narrative, and then when Chauncey Billups kind of made that comment, a lot of the media like just ran with it and talked about it.
And I love Chauncey. He's one of my guys. So I don't want to like go against Chauncey, but I think that might have been like taken out of.
It definitely was.
You know what I mean? But I think at the end of the day, like it's like everybody wants to do well at their job. You know what I mean? Or whatever they do, they want to do well. And just because certain things work out doesn't mean that in response to like Chauncey's thing, I think just because certain things don't go well doesn't mean you don't want to perform well. And I think that was the issue. I think certain nights, if you don't perform well, it may bother you. You know what I mean? Because you expect great things from yourself. I think that's what that kind of was. That would be my assumption. And as for Melo as a bad teammate, like that's crazy. It's just crazy. Nobody who knows him or played with him would ever say that. I had a great time with him. He actually said the last game we played together, I missed like one of our last shots, and it was like a big one. I was supposed to like give him the ball, and they trapped the ball, and then I was like, I'll shoot it. You know what I mean? I missed, and it was a big miss. And I remember like going to Melo after the game. I was like, bro, I should have like found a way to get you the ball, man. It was drawn up like for him. You know what I mean? And he was like, man, don't even think about that. And he told me a lot of stuff just to keep my head not from going into it like we're competitors and we could go to a dark place after losing in the playoffs and stuff. So, I mean, to me, he was one of my favorite teammates, honestly. So I don't know why anybody would say that's my story with him. Like he picked me up when he probably could have been like one of those superstars that been like, what could have been a different response.
Especially like you were probably the guy going up against him in practice, just like with your positions and like.
Yeah, I mean, I've been battling him for years in the summer times and stuff like that. Him and JR, and I think there was like a lot of respect. I think it's mutual. All I wanted to do was get better and like compete. I was just really happy to be there. You know what I mean? Like it was really a blessing for me. So I think the respect, and obviously he earned his own respect by being who he is. So I think the respect was mutual.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's all mostly like a media myth, and it just kind of comes from like his perception as like some people think he's a selfish player. But I mean, I don't really think there's anyone that's really ever badmouths him.
There's no one's ever had like a bad story.
I'll call it lazy writing.
Yeah.
I mean, like they need to be based on something.
Yeah.
For him to be a bad teammate, I think his teammates would have to say that.
Do you think he should still be in the league? Like, why do you think he's still unsigned?
Yeah, I definitely think he should be in the league. I heard that thing. I guess Stephen A. said it's hard to like look down the end of the bench and see,
Yeah,
Hall of
I heard
Famer.
that too. It's hard. Yeah, that made sense to me.
Yes, but I mean, to me, the NBA is about the best of the best. That's what I always thought. And obviously, there are guys that can compete overseas, that get good enough to be in the league and all that type of stuff. But he's so high up on the totem pole. Like I said, like most people say, you can't find half the league is better than him. You know what I mean? So I think just off his ability alone, he should be on somebody's roster. Somebody can use him if they're serious about trying to win games. You can't tell me every team can't use a weapon. But that's just my perspective. If some coaches are like want to keep power and they, not humble enough to maybe share some of that spotlight with a guy that can help. I mean, that he may stay on the outside looking in, but he obviously has the ability. Even if it's just pickup games, you can see he's in shape. You know what I mean? He's ready to go. So I hope he gets his opportunity. He deserves it. He's one of the greats. We'll see what happens.
I think hopefully he'll meet up with a contender. Hopefully like mid-season. That seems to be like how it's playing out. Hopefully, but I think everyone wants to see him on a team. No one likes to see him just.
Yeah, he deserves that.
Yeah.
I think again, the media will do things to get people to click or read or whatever. So it's just what they're doing now. It's one of those news hot topics. They're gonna run with it, even though it's not real.
So another question about like media narratives. Like a lot of people give the have a conception of like that the Knicks ownership sucks. James Dolan and whatnot, and players don't want to go there. Like, was there like a difference in like the management between like New York and Indiana? Like, did the Knicks do you believe that the Knicks have like there's something about them that's a bad aura where like players don't want to go there, or do you think it's just kind of perceived? I mean, to me, I can't really imagine anyone really cares too much about the owner, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
Man, that whistle gets blown, the lights is on. Nobody's thinking about the ownership. I know everybody needs to point fingers at whoever when things don't go right or go as they would like. But I never had a problem with Dolan. I didn't see an issue. Could they have done things better? Of course. I mean, everybody can do better, right? But I still feel like people again make things up. You know what I mean? It's just making situations that aren't really real. Of course, there are things you could have done better, but strictly from a basketball wire, the Knicks winning standpoint, I mean, I'm not putting that on him. That's just me.
Yeah, and like especially like when things happen like this summer where there was so much hype leading in, and obviously it's almost like the biggest slap in the face possible seeing Kyrie and KD go to the Nets, and I think like it's really easy just for everyone to point the finger at Dolan as the reason. But that kind of leads into my next question for you. You have a pretty unique perspective as growing up a Knicks fan from New Jersey, playing for the Knicks in the Garden. Now that Brooklyn versus the Knicks is like, it's going to get real, especially, I mean, Brooklyn seems to be a title contender when healthy. But it'll never compete with the Knicks fan base. How do you think that plays out in New York? Do you think that's going to be
Which part? Who I think is going to win the games, or who I think?
Not even I'm talking about the fans and kind of the city.
No, it's the Knicks. Yeah. I might be biased, but I mean, come on. Yeah. They'll be cool. I mean, honestly, when KD comes back, barring some kind of wild, who knows, injury, Lord forbid, or something like that, I would bet as soon as KD comes back, they'll probably be the better team. I'm just sorry to say that, Knicks fans. It is what it is.
Yeah.
When KD comes back, I'm pretty sure they'll be the better team. But I think either way, it's good for the city. You know what I mean? Like I think both teams have a real legitimate shot at making the playoffs this year. And I don't see why that's a bad thing. Fans can when they were battling, I like Drake and Meek. I don't think it's a bad thing to like both teams. I think you can support both and choose your side when they play each other, and then support your city regardless.
Do you have like I don't know how closely you follow the Knicks. Do you have any thoughts on like their new youngest players like Mitchell Robinson and R.J. Barrett and Julius Randle and those guys? ISO.
I know Randall. He's. I'm a fan. I think he's gonna have a great year. I like a lot of the pickups. And Matthias Gibson guy, I think he's gonna do well. From what I've seen, I like Zoe. I like Mitchell. I haven't seen enough of RJ to say anything. I really just don't know. I'm not gonna say good, better, in between. But I've heard he's good. So we have to see this year. And but I think this team they got some really nice pieces. Coaching is not gonna be a problem. I think they have what it takes to do some damage, and we'll see.
Yeah. One question I have going back to being a Knick. So you're all year you had kind of inconsistent minutes. At the end of the year, you kind of showed out. I think in the last 3 games you averaged 28 points a game, and they thrust you into the starting lineup like in the playoffs. What was that like? All of a sudden, I think you started against the Celtics, right? Like, what was that like playing in a playoff atmosphere? Before the year before, you weren't even sure if like you had made it. All of a sudden, you're playing in the playoffs. What was that like?
That's crazy. I don't know if I started against the Celtics, but maybe I did. I really don't remember. But yeah, it was crazy to be in the playoffs all of a sudden. Just coming from a country I love, but I was in Belgium the year before that, and just coming from that situation to be in the Garden, it was crazy. There's no other way to look at it. Like I couldn't have dreamed a better situation.
So that was like I remember that playoff series especially, and then I also really remember me and Alex. We obviously were pretty devastated when you left for Indiana, and I kind of wanted to see what that change was like for you, going from kind of the most intense and scrutinized basketball market your first year to even possibly go to a more consistent team, but definitely a completely different vibe. Like, what was that like for you?
Just less. It was just less reporters, but the demands and everything was the same. That team was. I mean, I think it was actually. It might have been a higher demand actually than the Knicks, a higher expectance to win because of their playoff run and the additions that were made. Scola came over, and we had pieces. Long story short, and I think that was it was definitely one of those we're here for a championship locker rooms. That was the thought, and the Knicks felt that way as well. But I think the world kind of expected Indiana to make noise those years, so it was very similar, just less reported.
Yeah, and when makes sense. When you went to Indiana, like that offseason, were you like a little like what was the relationship between you and the Knicks that offseason? Like, did you want to go back and they didn't want you back? Like, were you disappointed at all? Like, what was free agency like with
the money wasn't there.
Yeah.
That team we had a lot of big contracts. They offered me for sure. It wasn't close to what Indiana offered. And honestly, I asked all my teammates. I sent texts to damn near everybody. Because I didn't want to go, and I was like, honestly, I fought it, and I told everybody the numbers, and everybody was like, "Cope, you got to go. Sign up, sign. It is what it is." Yeah. And it was a move that I didn't want to make at the time, but I'm glad I did. I was made guys I consider friends to this day. I was in the trenches with some really cool guys. I had great years. It was fun. I'm glad I did it.
Awesome. And just to cap that off, what was now Frank Vogel's obviously the coach in LA. What was it kind of like, or even what would you say it was like playing for him, and how is it differently than playing for Coach Woodson?
Two totally different guys, but both very defensive orientated. Very both of them. And Frank, what can I say? I mean, I got love for both of them. You know what I mean? They're both great guys off the court. Both great coaches. Differences. I think Frank is a little bit more of a player's coach. I would say Woody is a little bit more, I don't know the word, but authoritative, or more of an authority figure, I guess. I don't know if how to say it, but I think he's I would say Woody is also a player's coach, but Vogel is more so.
Yeah, that makes
Trying to
sense.
say it different.
And also, I didn't even think about this. It's funny to think that the Lakers coaching staff is going to be a lot of you connections with J. Kidd and Vogel.
I have one question. When you so you played with Milwaukee a bit, was that? It seemed to me that Jason Kidd like brought in a bunch of like guys he had played with or had coached. Like, was he like responsible for like bringing you in and like hooking you? Like, was that the?
For sure, yeah, 100%. Jason Kidd pulled me. That was the Knicks connection, 100%.
All right, so I think we're gonna about wrap things up, but just one more like little segment. Our show is called Per 36 because it's about roughly 36 minutes, and because we paid, we give some love to bench players who had some great per 36-minute stats, but you may not have actually gotten those minutes. So like I said, like per 36 minutes, like that stat line, like that stat.
No, it's that. Mm-hmm.
Did you know your per 36 you averaged 20 points per 36?
That's dope. No, I didn't know that.
Back-to-back seasons, it was 20 and then almost 21.
Yeah. Do you think if you got that many minutes, you would score that many? I mean, personally, I think you would score more than that. I mean, when you got minutes at the end of the year, you were putting up, 28.
No one could ever say, I mean, like, in a lot of ways, it's like kind of how people describe, like, Michael Beasley. Like, both of you guys you were kind of like a walking bucket. Like, you could kind of go toe-to-toe with anyone in terms of scoring ability, and I don't think many people are going to argue that from people who played against you.
Yeah, I don't think anybody who's played against me would say I can't get a bucket. I don't think anybody would say it. Yeah, that's dope. Would I have? You said do I think I would do that? Yeah.
I think we've got more
proper situation and all of that type of stuff with minutes. Yeah, I definitely I do that.
I mean, I don't know. You stop Chris Copeland. He has you have the outside shot, you have the post game, and then if you're with Pablo, you have the pick and roll.
I have Pablo with me. I average 50.
That's like, I think that's like up there with like Stockton, Malone, Kobe, Shaq, Copeland, Pablo. That's up there.
Right, agreed. I know we got to be top 7.
When your time in New York, do you have any like specific, like, just wrapping up, just curious, do you have any crazy memories of people coming up to you just in the street or late at night or anything like that? And just
yeah, I got quite a few. I met some really cool people though. Everybody showed love. A lot of the city knew my story, and I fit the profile for exactly who I was. It was hard hat type guy. That's my life story, and the city embraced that. So a lot of times people will come up and I always want to make sure I try to take every picture, shake every hand, sign every autograph if I had time. Try to, because I appreciated them. I appreciated the love they had for me. So.
It's a shame I never got to meet you in person and get one of those autographs, but it's an honor to have had you on the podcast.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, and
no, cool.
Dream come true.
Yeah, hopefully our paths will cross again. It was really nice talking to you.
I'm sure it will. Wish you guys the best of luck with your podcast.
You
Continue to grow. I see a lot of big things for you guys in the future.
You too. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
We're gonna keep checking in on you in your next chapter.
Yes, sir. Good luck.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah.